All right, 49ers breaking news. It's a driving with David. Don't worry, I'm keeping my eyes on the road because Lombardi herself is filming. 49ers have cut George Odum, 31-year-old safety, but I think more importantly than safety, special teams ace. They're going to save about $1.7 million in salary cap space with this move, which I was talking about a few months ago as being a very distinct possibility because the 49ers are completely overhauling their special teams unit. Brant Boyer's the new coordinator. He has already brought in a new kicker to compete with Jake Moody. He has brought in a new punter, and that's meant that the 49ers have cut their old punter. That was Mitch Wishnowsky. Thomas Morstead is their new punter. And as far as special teams ace goes, the 49ers signed Saran Neal, the former Buffalo Bill, someone who Brant Boyer is very familiar with, competing against in the AFC East. And when you look at the construction of the 49ers roster, I think Saran Neal fills the void that George Odum held for the past few seasons with San Francisco. Odum was a really good player at his peak with the 49ers. They picked him up from the Indianapolis Colts, where he was a special teams all-pro. And then in 2023, when right before he got hurt, right before a torn pectoral cut into some availability for George Odum, he led the entire NFL in special teams tackles. It obviously helped that the 49ers kicked off so much in 2023 because they had such a good offense, but this was a good special teams player for the 49ers further down the roster on the safety depth chart. It is worth noting as well that George Odum yesterday was placed on the non-football injury list, which indicates that he suffered some sort of injury away from the team facility. So the 49ers went ahead and released him, and the Saran Neal era is now fully upon us. We're in Williamson County, Tennessee, by the way. Beautiful drive here through the countryside. Thought you might wonder where we're at. Probably not all too far from where George Kittle is based, where Brock Purdy is soon to be based in the offseason, although I think I've seen a ton of Brock Purdy in this Nashville area. Williamson County is just south of Davidson County, which is the county where Nashville is at. It's kind of like 49ers HQ in the offseason. So the 49ers now have a free roster spot. What are they going to do with that roster spot? Training camp and the practices start this next week, so they're going to be able to bolster any position that needs bolstering. Obviously, they think that safety is in a decent spot. We're probably going to find out what exactly the injury was that landed George Odum on NFI. But at safety, Marquise Siegel is back. We made a video about him the other day. Marquise Siegel is the rookie, the 5th-round pick out of Kansas State. He can play some special teams for the 49ers. You know why? Because Marquise Siegel is the fastest safety in this 2025 draft class. 4.37. So Marquise, he's going to make this roster, assuming that he stays healthy, not on NFI for the 49ers. That's big news. And he's going to join a couple of new additions in that safety room. Jason Pinnock, Richie Grant. I think Pinnock is a really good special teams player. That also helps pick up some of the slack that George Odum's departure might leave behind. But you could see this coming just because Brant Boyer's brought in his own guys. And if George Odum wasn't good enough at safety to crack this roster, and that's a roster that includes Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, who's not on PUP. Jair Brown is healthy, ready to go. It includes Jason Pinnock. It includes Richie Grant. It includes Jalen Mahoney, who played his college ball here in this area, played for Vanderbilt. And it also includes Marquise Siegel. Well, George Odum was going to be the odd man out. $1.7 million in cap savings for the 49ers. George Odum was under contract through the 2026 season. Nothing guaranteed for him in 2026, though, so that money is wiped off the books for the 49ers. The proration of his signing bonus, though, is something that hits the 49ers cap at about $2 million of dead money, but they still open up $1.6 million. Now, what was interesting, and this is something I talked about earlier in the spring, George Odum had $1 million of his contract salary this season vest into a guarantee on April 1st. So I'm sure a lot of people will ask, well, why didn't they cut George Odum earlier? Because in that case, the 49ers wouldn't be responsible for the $1 million guarantee. This is where offset language comes in. Offset language means that if and when George Odum signs with another team, which will be for at least $1.2 or $1.3 million due to the veteran minimum negotiated into the collective bargaining agreement. George Odum's been around the league for a while now. Because of that, the new team is going to pay the guarantee. So $1.3 million veteran minimum base salary. George Odum signs elsewhere. That's all going to mean that the 49ers don't owe him the million for this year, and they will save the $1.7 million in cap space. But let's just talk a little bit about the 49ers and how different this special teams unit's going to look. And I think it's good that it's going to look different next year because they were so damn bad in 2024. This was the worst special teams unit in all football for the 49ers last season. And a lot of the problems happen at the kicking position, so I get it. A lot of people are focused on Jake Moody. Well, he has competition now in Greg Joseph. Greg Joseph is somebody who's hit some long field goals, including, a 60-plus yard game winner for the Minnesota Vikings not too long ago. That competition will really blossom into full force over the course of the next couple of weeks, and especially into the games once preseason hits. I think those are going to be a major determining factor for the 49ers. They believe Moody has talent. They believe that the high ankle sprain last year caused a lot of his struggles, but they also believe that he needs to go through the pressure cooker to ensure that they're good to go for the regular season. Mitch Wishnowsky was dealing with the back issue, knee issues, a lot of problems there. Didn't have a good year before he went on the shelf in 2024. So Thomas Morstead is somebody who Brant Boyer is really familiar with. He's in there. They've also replaced the long snapper, Tabor Pepper. They brought in John Weeks, the 39-year-old long snapper who's considered one of the standards of long snapping around the league. So they're on track here to potentially replace the entire kicking battery. And also, they're going to replace the special teams ace position now for sure with George Odum being cut. Saran Neal is a backup nickel back, so instead of having that special teams tackling ace coming from the safety position, it's now going to come from the cornerback room, still a DB, but Saran Neal essentially the new George Odum for the 49ers, with guys like Jason Pinnock, a guy like Luke Gifford, who's a linebacker. He was a special teams ace for the Tennessee Titans in this area last year. That's all part of the new guard for the 49ers. So you finished number 32 in special teams efficiency last year, and you're going to hope that that rises dramatically in 2025. I think if the 49ers can get up to the top half of the league in special teams, just don't be the worst team, right? So get it to number 16. That's the first year of Brian Schneider where they ranked and it was totally fine, right? That was back in that 2022 season. Get it up to the top half and you'll be good. But Brant Boyer has coordinated some top 5 units in his time. So maybe it takes a little bit longer to get up to that point if you're the 49ers, but you just can't have the horrific unit that they fielded in that 2024 season. That sunk a lot of things for the 49ers. They were deficient in so many areas. Speaking of special teams, Richie James Jr. just retired. I mean, it's crazy. I do a video here in the Nashville area. Richie James Jr. went to Middle Tennessee State University down in Murfreesboro, where Jawan Jennings went to high school. I'm talking about Jawan Jennings a lot, but Richie James retired. The last 49er to return a kick for a touchdown was Richie James Jr. He went on to play for the New York Giants and the Chiefs against the 49ers in the Super Bowl, but they haven't seen anyone return a kick for a touchdown in 7 years. That was 2018 against the Seahawks. It was the game where Sebastian Janikowski, the kicker, just decided, business decision, end of his career, did not want to tackle Richie James. But the 49ers have not housed one since then on kickoffs. That just shows you that this special teams unit does need to deliver something a little extra. Now, it's not necessarily returning a kick for a touchdown, but it's better field position. The 49ers were commonly in terrible field position last year. So, and it's asserting better field position against a worse field position for opponents. It's making your field goals. It's delivering on punts and punt coverage. It's just an overall institutional improvement that the 49ers need to make on special teams. And it has started with the house cleaning for San Francisco, and that house cleaning continues with George Odum now cut. 1.7 million in savings. Driving with David is over. We'll talk to you guys next time.